Welcome to the Connect to Energy channel. Today I will bring you a topic that many of you are interested in, the feeling of unable to accept defeat, the motivation to never give up. Have you ever felt like you couldn't take it anymore, wanting to give up because everything has become too difficult? But it's in those moments that a strange feeling emerges within you, unable to accept defeat. This is the feeling of being unable to bear failure, unwilling to accept the current outcome, and desiring change. It is this feeling that drives us to stand up and keep moving forward, no matter how tough the road ahead may be. The feeling of unable to accept defeat is not about anger or hopeless disappointment. It is a latent strength, a powerful source of motivation that helps us not just accept hardships, but also find ways to overcome them. This feeling has helped countless people succeed by overcoming challenges, turning failure into valuable lessons, and continuing to persevere. When you feel like you can't continue, the feeling of unable to accept defeat will be the spark that ignites your belief and motivation. In this life, no one achieves success without experiencing failure. But it is those who don't give up, those who cannot accept failure, who can truly reach the peak. Let the feeling of unable to accept defeat guide you through every challenge and conquer the great goals ahead. The feeling of unable to accept defeat, the motivation to overcome challenges. When you face challenges, when you stumble upon failure, the feeling of unable to accept defeat is the catalyst that prevents you from stopping. It's the feeling of not being able to accept being a loser, of giving up before exhausting all possibilities. Instead of surrendering, unable to accept defeat is the reason you find a way to get back up, to keep going, even when the road ahead is full of difficulties. This feeling does not allow you to quit when everything feels overwhelming, and it pushes you to go further. In fact, the feeling of unable to accept defeat doesn't just appear when we fail, but also bursts forth when we see others moving forward while we remain stuck in place. In those moments, you feel the need to do something, to change something, so you don't have to continue living with the feeling of being a failure. We all know that success never comes easily. It comes from failure, from trying and trying again until the right way is found. And if you don't have that feeling of unable to accept defeat, you will easily give up. But it's when this feeling arises that it helps you maintain momentum, learn from failure, and continually improve. So, instead of viewing unable to accept defeat as a negative feeling, see it as motivation, as the quiet strength that drives you to never stop striving. It's the key to not only overcoming failure but also reaching new heights in life. Transforming emotions, from unable to accept defeat to change and growth. When you feel unable to accept defeat, that feeling doesn't always come from anger or pointless dissatisfaction. In fact, unable to accept defeat is a powerful emotion that can be transformed into positive motivation, a starting point for personal change and growth. It's not blind frustration, but a deep awareness that you can do better, that you can improve yourself, and that you refuse to remain stagnant. The feeling of unable to accept defeat is a signal that you are dissatisfied with what you've achieved and crave a better result. It motivates you to find new ways, explore creative solutions, and try again with a stronger spirit. Instead of letting negative emotions control you, you turn them into an opportunity to learn from failure, adjust your strategy, and push yourself even harder. For example, when you encounter difficulties at work or in your studies, the feeling of unable to accept defeat may be the reason you don't give up, but instead look for new ways to improve. This feeling drives you not just to try again, but to do it in a completely different, more refined, and more effective way. The transformation from unable to accept defeat to action is a process in which you learn to stand up, keep trying, and gradually improve yourself every day. Thus, unable to accept defeat is not a negative emotion. It is an opportunity for you to push your limits and strive for a better version of yourself. It is not only the motivation to never give up, but also the motivation to keep improving and perfecting yourself. When you know how to transform this emotion, you will see that every failure is just a stepping stone that brings you closer to success. Unable to accept defeat, motivation for breakthrough steps. Once the feeling of unable to accept defeat is transformed into positive motivation, it not only changes the way you perceive challenges, but also drives you to make breakthrough steps in life. When you no longer accept failure or being stuck in the present, you begin to find new ways to overcome challenges. This could be learning a new skill, starting over with a different approach, or simply changing the way you approach the problem to find a better solution. The feeling of unable to accept defeat helps you realize that you are not a victim of circumstances, but the one who takes proactive steps to create change. You begin to view failure as a valuable lesson, an inevitable part of the learning and growth process. Each failure is an opportunity to identify weaknesses, improve skills, and strengthen self-belief. Imagine you are learning to play tennis, and for the first time you miss the ball. Instead of giving up, the feeling of unable to accept defeat drives you not only to practice again, but also to find new methods to improve your skills. With each practice, you get closer to mastery. The dissatisfaction with failure doesn't just push you to try harder, but also helps you discover mistakes you hadn't noticed before, allowing you to perform better next time. This applies not only in sports, but in every area of life. Whether you're facing a challenging work project or a difficult personal goal, the feeling of unable to accept defeat is the catalyst that pushes you not just to try again, but to do it better, smarter, and more effectively. It's the motivation to always improve yourself, never give up, and always move forward. The feeling of unable to accept defeat in life. The feeling of unable to accept defeat is not just a theory or an abstract concept. It truly exists in the lives of successful people who have overcome countless failures and challenges to achieve great accomplishments. Stories of famous figures like Steve Jobs, Thomas Edison, and Michael Jordan are the clearest evidence of the power of the feeling of unable to accept defeat. Take Steve Jobs as an example. Although he was the founder of Apple, one of the largest tech companies in the world, Jobs also faced numerous failures and difficulties throughout his career. One of his biggest challenges was being fired from the very company he founded. But instead of accepting failure, Jobs felt unable to accept defeat and decided to continue pursuing his passion. This feeling helped him not only rise after the great shock, but also make major breakthroughs with Next and Pixar, before returning to transform Apple into a powerful tech empire. Jobs once said, "Your work will fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do." Or take Thomas Edison, known for his famous quote, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Edison never gave up despite facing thousands of failures while inventing the electric light bulb. Each failure was a moment when he felt unable to accept defeat and kept persisting until he succeeded. This resilience, fueled by the feeling of unable to accept defeat, brought life-changing inventions to the world, and he became one of the greatest inventors in history. Michael Jordan's story is also a clear example of the power of the feeling of unable to accept defeat. Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team and faced numerous failures in his career. But it was the feeling of unable to accept defeat that pushed him to constantly practice and break through his limits. With 6 NBA championship trophies, Jordan is a clear testament to never giving up, even in the face of failure. These stories are not just lessons in perseverance, but also evidence that unable to accept defeat is the motivation that turns every failure into a learning opportunity, ultimately leading to success. When you face difficulties, remember that the feeling of unable to accept defeat is the catalyst that helps you stand up, improve yourself, and keep striving toward your goals. Conclusion. Perseverance, the key to unlocking success. After all the stories and lessons we've shared, one thing becomes clearer than ever. Perseverance is the key factor in overcoming challenges and difficulties in life. No matter who you are, what you do, or where you are on your journey, one thing is certain. If you don't give up and keep striving, you will always move closer to your goals. The feeling of unable to accept defeat, although it may make us feel uncomfortable or disappointed at first, is actually a hidden source of energy that drives us to keep going. It's not blind anger, but the motivation to find another way, continue learning, and improve yourself. It's in those moments when you feel dissatisfied with the current outcome that you will find new methods and different strategies to work more effectively. This is the factor that makes the difference between those who succeed and those who give up. The famous figures we've mentioned, from Steve Jobs to Thomas Edison and Michael Jordan, all faced failure many times, but what set them apart was their ability to see failure as a stepping stone, an essential part of the journey towards success. They didn't let themselves stop, didn't let failure define them. And it was within that, unable to accept defeat, that they found the strength to stand up, learn from their mistakes, and create breakthrough achievements. Life will not be easy, and there will always be times when you feel defeated, when everything seems hopeless. But in those moments, if you can turn the feeling of unable to accept defeat into motivation, you will see that each challenge, each failure, is actually an opportunity for you to become stronger, smarter, and go further. There is no path to success without obstacles, but if you don't give up, if you keep your belief in yourself, you will find that every difficulty can be overcome. Remember, perseverance is not just the strength to keep moving forward, but the ability to rise after each fall and keep fighting with an unshakable determination. Failure is not the end point, but just a part of the long journey towards success. As long as you don't give up, you will always get closer to your dream. Finally, when the feeling of unable to accept defeat arises, don't see it as something negative. See it as a sign that you haven't yet achieved what you want, and that's the powerful motivation to keep pushing forward. Let perseverance become the strength within you, and as Thomas Edison said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." Let every failure be a lesson, and walk confidently on the path you have chosen. Success will come to those who never give up.